Kill Bill Volume 1 is a 2003 martial arts throwback film written and directed by Quentin Tarantino, of course, and stars Uma Thurman, David Carradine, Daryl Hannah, Lucy Liu, Vivica A. Fox, Michael Madsen. Don't get me wrong, it's a Tarantino film, so there's a ton of other side characters that I can't name. But my personal favorites being played by Sonny Chiba, Gordon Liu, Kenji Oba, and Michael Parks. Those are my choices. And the plot follows a former assassin on a mission to get her revenge on the people who tried to kill her. Oh man, I made a bad cup of coffee today. Do you ever do that? Does your coffee just turn out weak? I don't know what I did wrong. So with the release of Kill Bill, The Whole Bloody Affair, I figured this is my time to review the Kill Bill films, right? I've been toying around with the idea for a while. Just never thought of the right time to do it. But I will say that I'm going to be reviewing the original cuts and as separate films. Not because I didn't like the Whole Bloody Affair edit, because I loved it, but just because I've always known them as two separate films. They were released as two separate films, albeit I think it was in the same year. But I know that it's Tarantino's preferred and intended version. But reviewing them as one film, honestly, would just be really hard for me. It's just it's too much. It's too much to go over. So first of all, the off chance that you aren't aware of what the whole, Bloody Affair even is, I mean, it's essentially the film that Kill Bill was supposed to be this whole time. This is what, Quentin Tarantino wanted it to be. He originally wanted it to be one long film. It would have probably been, over 4 hours or whatever, but it would have been too long, and he would have had to have cut some scenes. So dividing it into two films allowed him to, not have to make any cuts that he already, didn't want to make. It did premiere at the Cannes Film Festival back in 2006. Some screenings at Tarantino's cinema. So it's been a kind of a thing of legend, to us plebs for over 20 years now. So for longtime Tarantino fans, I mean, this is kind of a big deal. Now that I've had a chance to see it, again, I do think it is the superior cut. There's no arguments, I don't think, for that. I really wish I had seen this version originally, though, back in the early 2000s, because a huge plot spoiler for part 2 was removed from this film. So seeing it this way, and for the first time, would just be really amazing. But that's not going to happen. There are other changes too, by the way, that I liked with the Full Bloody Affair cut, but a few that I kind of didn't. I'll just kind of mention them as I go along as I'm doing this review. So this is the second Tarantino film that I've reviewed now, and I think I actually appreciate his work more now than I ever did. I mean, especially where I'm at now with my personal tastes. I appreciated it in the early 2000s. I was completely blown away the first time I saw Pulp Fiction. But now as an old dude, I just can't get enough. And I know that, I'm not even in a minority with that opinion, but a lot of people seem to really dislike Tarantino. I love reading all the hate for him every time his name or his films get mentioned, even by people that, huge auteurs or whatever. I don't know. I don't give a shit. I am a sucker for that stylized shit, which is kind of his thing. And this movie is just full of it. And right from the very beginning, when you get that famous Shaw Brothers, Shaw Scope title card, this should remind you of, QT's love for the Shaw Brothers movies. And it should also let you know what to expect here, with the movie. I mean, that's just one of his many influences, of course, but it's a big one here. It's huge. Now, right at the beginning is where the first change to the Whole Bloody Affair cut happens. Replacing the old Klingon proverb is a tribute to Japanese director Kinji Fukasaku, which was cool and all around fitting, but I did kind of miss the Klingon proverb. After that, strap in, because this film hits the ground running, and it's intense from the very first second. And from that first second, you're introduced to Uma Thurman's just absolute tour de force performance. One of my favorite performances of all time, I think it's fair to say, and probably one of my favorite characters of all time. I mean, come on. Which, by the way, was created by Tarantino and Uma Thurman herself. So that was always really cool to me. Anyway, so it starts off with a black and white scene, not the first one of the film. And the scene actually showcases, QT's love for spaghetti western films, which, he's done many times. And you see Uma's character, only known as the bride, laying on the floor all bloody and bruised as a man walks over to her. You hear the sound of boots, on a wooden floor as he gets closer. And this is your introduction to Bill, played by David Carradine. And you only know it's him because his name is on the handkerchief that he used to wipe blood off the bride's face before he just shoots her point blank in the head. Uma has very few words in this scene, but the emotions she conveys with her face, and it's just raw and very real. And yeah, so if you haven't seen this, or if you have, I guess it doesn't matter because this is the first 1 minute of the movie or something. But she, and it's hard to hear. You kind of gotta pay attention, but she tells Bill that the baby is his, and that's literally right before he shoots her. Overall, I think her performance in both Kill Bill volumes were Oscar worthy. I don't know. I don't really follow award shows and stuff. I don't know if she was nominated for any awards or won any awards for her performance. I'm gonna have to look that up. But if not, I don't know. If she didn't, I mean, she deserved it. From there, we pretty much jump headfirst into the story of who the bride is and how she got into the situation. Look, I know that, QT's personal style is highly stylized, and, he loves to showcase his influences. And a lot of people, like I said earlier, a lot of people seem to have a problem with that. And I've always had a problem with these people having a problem with that. Maybe that's my problem. I don't know. I get it. I like to give nods to my influences too when I do shit, but it doesn't mean that I'm just constantly ripping them off, because I'm not, and neither is he. But if you're a fan of the influences at play here, at least for me, its charm is just super undeniable, and I can't get enough of it. So whatever. So the spaghetti western stuff, the samurai martial arts and yakuza stuff, the classic anime. All topped off with an exploitation revenge story that holds it all together and, keeps it relatively simple. So essentially, Uma Thurman has a list of all the members of the Deadly Viper assassination squad that did her wrong. And it's the way that QT wrote this that makes it so fun. I mean, again, it's that classic simple story, epic journey, style that he loves so much. And the first target on her list is Copperhead, played by Vivica A. Fox. Just minutes into the movie, and you learn a lot about the bride here. So she herself was once a member of the Deadly Viper assassination squad led by Bill himself. Her code name was Black Mamba, which is funny because Vivica A. Fox says that should have been her code name in this scene, and that gets me every time. So the bride just simply walks up to Copperhead's house. She's living in this nice suburb. She isn't an assassin anymore and has a new life with her husband and daughter. So the bride doesn't sneak in. She doesn't kick down the door. She just walks up. She either knocks or rings the doorbell, whatever. This is the way of the warrior, man, and she needs these people to know that they failed in killing her, and they need to know that it's her that's killing them. That's how this works. So they fight for a minute or two before the school bus pulls up and drops off Copperhead's daughter. I guess she's probably 7 or 8. Because again, Tarantino he knows how to inject some humor, when he sees the opportunity. And she can see that Copperhead isn't a killer anymore, and that she's a mom. But, revenge is revenge. Revenge doesn't wait for anybody. That said, you learn her personal ethics when Copperhead asks that it doesn't happen around her daughter. So they wait for her to go upstairs before they, continue, discussing how it's going to go down. But as they are doing that, Copperhead actually pulls out a gun out of a cereal box as the bride kills her with a throwing knife. So she looks over and sees Copperhead's daughter, just standing speechless, and we get another emotional scene from Uma Thurman already. We're 5 minutes in, as she tells the girl that someday, she'll have her own revenge arc. And if she does come after her at some point, she'll understand. And for me, this whole scene is just one of my favorites. That's why I had to describe it from front to back. It's like a scene, it's like a scene just written just for me. You get a great martial arts fight, a top-notch acting, but you also get emotion and a hero with ethics that you can get behind, the warrior code. Now, I'm not gonna spoil everything here. I'm not gonna go scene by scene, and not that you probably haven't seen this anyways, but I just wanted to go through that first chapter because you learn a lot in a brief amount of time. As much as I hate to pick a favorite, between Kill Bill Volume 1 and Volume 2. I kind of always preferred this one to Volume 2, but it's kind of like picking a favorite child. And I only have one of those, so luckily I've never had to do that. I suppose it's because it does have some of my favorite fight scenes like ever in the history of movies. It's a little bit more high octane, I guess you could say, as where Volume 2 is a little bit more relaxed and emotional, which I like. I mean, I love Volume 2. I don't know. I don't need to be comparing them. But it also has that infamous animated scene that tells the story of O-Ren Ishii, played by Lucy Liu, which I've always liked. I think everyone's always liked. I remember the first time I saw it, I was just like, yes. Just a nice violent ode to, hand-drawn 80s and 90s anime, classic anime, that was extended quite a bit in the whole Bloody Affair cut, by the way, which was cool because I liked that scene, but not really something that I needed. It was fun, but I could have gone without it, I guess. So the bride must now travel to Japan to have a sword made by Hatoro Hanzo, a master sword maker played by martial arts film superstar Sonny Chiba. It was basically Japan's answer to Bruce Lee back in the. He probably came on the scene mid to late 70s, I think. And as if that wasn't cool enough, we also get Kenji Oba in the same scene. Another Japanese action legend who starred in films with Sonny Chiba. So from there, it's all history as we know it. Because the bride takes her new sword to take on O-Ren Ishii in the infamous battle against her and the Crazy 88s, Yakuza gang. And this scene is pretty much known, and rightfully so, as one of the best action scenes of the 21st century. Hands down. It's fun, insanely over the top, brutal, showing more classic anime influence, with blood spraying everywhere and limbs flying through the air. And the scene switches to black and white about halfway through, I think, which back in the day I just thought was a cool visual touch. But years later I would learn, and you might already know this too, but it was actually done to achieve an R rating instead of, being unrated or NC-17, whatever system they were using back then. And even though, I always thought it looked cool, the whole Bloody Affair cut shows the scene in full color. And I gotta say, it does look way more brutal, and I do prefer it this way. Seeing all the blood in color, instead of just, half of it, it's awesome. I also have to say that in a movie full of details and references, my absolute favorite is the bride's yellow tracksuit. Something just so simple like that, an obvious reference to Bruce Lee from Game of Death. I worship Bruce Lee as a kid, so this one has always been amazing to me. Even before I saw the movie, I think I just remember seeing her in that yellow suit, man, and I just, yeah, that was it for me. So I think that, if we are to consider Kill Bill just one film, then it has to be my favorite of Tarantino's work. It absolutely has to be. All the pieces are there for me, the influences, the performances, the stylistic choices. It's perfect. I'm a sucker for a revenge story, and I'm a sucker for a female-led revenge story even more. And Uma Thurman gives a performance that we will, I think, remember, at least I will, remember until the end of time. So I'm giving Kill Bill Volume 1 a 10 out of 10. Flawless victory. I just love everything about it, dude. The stylized, Hong Kong style camera work, courtesy of legendary cinematographer Robert Richardson. Probably could have talked about him a little bit more here. The exploitation female empowerment angle. Most of the Deadly Vipers are female. I think all except for Michael Madsen's character and Bill. And a lot of the Crazy 88s are female as well. So I just put Uma Thurman up there with the best action heroes of the 21st century. And every time I watch Kill Bill, I want to watch a bunch of martial arts films right after. Often I do. Cheers, guys, and I'll see you at the multiplex. Subscribe right now, please.